Hey everybody, I'm LSDJ and I'm going to be doing a VOD review. This match is from a recent Fall of the Squids tournament, the semifinal match between Deep Blues and Deadbeat. This was the first set where Deadbeat kind of showed some weakness, and if a few games played out differently, I think Deep Blues actually could have taken it. So let's get into it. This first game ends up being pretty short, but there's a couple things you can pull from it. So right off the start here, somebody gets picked off in mid, and Taylor reacts to that by trying to go towards mid instead of helping his Rapid Blaster on the left here. I think he probably should have just gone with the Rapid Blaster regardless. It would have reduced the effect of losing the control of this area, and Dryas, you know, he's a cherry. He can pretty much live for as long as he wants, so he probably should have left Dryas alone to like hopefully fend for himself, and then they could have at least kept this area here for at least a little bit longer and get some jumps in maybe. But they end up splitting up. He gets a pick that slows him down a little bit, but mostly DB kind of just, or Deadbeat just gets their push here. So now they're kind of staggered, but they kind of take a little breath, so this take back actually works pretty well. They're waiting for Dryas's bubble. So Dryas bubbles in with them, and they get a good take back here. Taylor does a perfect move here, and is going to back wall. They don't have full control of this area, even though they still have the bubble, but he knows that if he gets this back wall, it's pretty much going to be full control. So it's a really smart decision to try and go up here. But this unfortunate stealth jump comes in, and that pretty much shuts everything down. That, like, Taylor made the right decision there, I think. It's just the stealth jump kind of ruined it all. And then from here, they just kind of fall apart. Now Taylor's just kind of rushing in. He doesn't really have any help. The help starts coming, but Burning was already in there too. And they're just kind of... they're not getting any map control, and they're just kind of dying now. This is kind of also a symptom of Salt Spray here, because Salt Spray, it's really hard to get back, and if like you have one good push but it still fails, you kind of like get in your own head on it. But yeah, everything here is pretty much just off the back of that last play, and then Deadbeat never lets them get their own, like, get a breath. And then that last stealth jump pretty much seals it there. So that was kind of a typical Salt Spray game. They could have done a couple things that would have made that a little better for them, but overall it's not something you can really take too much from. Alright, so let's get on to game 2. Here we go. Alright, so this one goes a little better for DB. And by DB, I mean Deep Blues. The same initials thing kind of drives me crazy. So I like their start here. They don't overcommit for this pop. And they also don't split up very much. So they kind of take a more reactive playstyle on the start. Let me, So they take a little more reactive playstyle. Let me back up just a little bit here. 150... try that. That's the beginning, but I'll pause it in the right spot this time. So, the decisions they're making here are they're focusing on mid and left, while also stopping any sort of suicide push from the top. And it really works out well for them because Taylor's in a perfect position to stop any Rainmaker push. And then they have more people on left ready to commit to it, so they get map control on left and end up getting a couple kills from it. That puts 3 down for Deadbeat. The only issue here was that Taylor and Burning end up doing the exact same thing. So the push is a little weak. They go to the same place and they end up splitting, and they don't split to like supporting angles. So Taylor kind of sits here in maze, and then Burning's just trying to go in, and they don't not really working together off of it, and they get picked off. This push could have been a lot deadlier, but they end up getting a whale that kind of saves it and allows them to get in a little deeper. This bubble doesn't do a whole lot, but the whale that comes in a second does a ton. So yeah, there's somebody ready to run it as soon as that whale goes off, and they end up getting the 28. Taylor didn't really need to suicide there for the Rainmaker. They had at least some map control left, and he was in a really good spot to kind of punish anything that like would move forward. I think he probably should have just stayed top mid a little longer there and just gotten info from his teammates and wondered on what he should focus on. But he does kill, at least he kills the Rainmaker, but I still don't know if it was worth it. So Taylor here, he's doing a lot of pushing up without any like map control around him. He's at 10 attack, and like all he really had to do there was spend just a couple extra seconds like inking the right side to give himself a little more options. I think he was a little scared of power, which is why he kind of rushed it. But he really should have just, you know, thrown a couple bombs and then gone for the move that he did. And because he didn't have anything around him to kind of like move around, he just gets picked off by that cherry. So this position is really, really, really risky when there's a bunch of map control around this area like this. You aren't always able to do stuff from here, because all they have to do is throw a bomb in there or even just run past you. It's really easy to run past it, and that's what ends up happening with the Rainmaker, and it gets really scary. But yeah, Taylor was very easily dealt with there and didn't have any map control around him. They do end up stopping it, but it was really close. So again, right here, he's going for kills in areas that they don't have ink control. And Pangit's obviously a good enough player to be able to move around in the ink and abuse it. Dropping on him wasn't the safest spot here. He definitely could have stayed up top and just thrown out a bunch of bombs and put some ink around him. He doesn't have to paint everything, and he doesn't have to stay out the whole time, just enough to like give some options to his teammates, and then they can paint the rest of it for him. So this bringing the Rainmaker right there does a really good job of delaying Deadbeat after kind of that little flub there. And it gives them a little opportunity to push back out. But again, they're going straight for top middle, but they aren't painting as much as they need to. They're getting heavily outpainted this game, and they're just kind of getting themselves choked out with bombs and sloshers and chargers. So it was a decent play to slow him down, and Marsh, I think, suicided the Rainmaker to kind of put it out of position. But again, Taylor's going for a play without any ink around him to like deal with it. He gets a trade, but it's not a trade that was really like... It didn't really do anything. So right there, he pushes on a guy with a wall up without ink control. I don't know if he was just feeling antsy right there. They had like adrenaline flowing or what, but there's a lot of instances in this game and throughout the set even where ink control just kind of is forgotten in favor of getting kills. But that was a really good, that was actually a good instance of sharking. He still didn't really have much ink around him, but he was in a good position to drop down on them. So that's kind of what I was going for with those other ones before. You wanna get some ink around you, but if you get an opportunity to get more than one, or trap them with a teammate in front of them, that's what you want to do. Not jump down on one guy and hope you can get him in a bunch of ink. And that was much better. That was way better. So Taylor's trying really hard to kind of just shark on the middle, and he's not getting, like, he needs to, if he's gonna do that, and he needs to make sure that he's telling his teammates to give him options around him. He's not getting any ink support, and if he's just sitting there like that, all he's gonna do is get himself shoved out. And that's pretty much what happens here. Like, he can't sit still because of the charger, and he can't push up because of all the ink around him, and he just gets picked off. And that's kind of what gives Deadbeat their push here. That's really smart movement, using what little ink they did have to kind of reposition and slow this down. Alright, so the difference there between that push and the push that DB did earlier was it was pretty much the same thing. They bubbled in and tried to get, try to shove it through. The difference was the bubble happened at the same time the Rainmaker was ready to move. Deep Blues, wow, this is gonna be hard. Deep Blues, their push, they bubbled first and then wailed to pop the Rainmaker. So they didn't quite get as far, and they also didn't split up onto the plat in the middle. So when they were pushing, they weren't in here. Let me pause it right there. They weren't in this spot on the other side of the map. And whereas Deadbeat, they did put Pangit here. He didn't survive for very long, but it was just long enough that Taylor had to deal with him, and then they could bubble through. And that's what allowed them to get down to 19. So basically, they essentially had the same push on that map. It's just Deadbeats was a little more coordinated, and it just gave them that extra 10 points that they needed to win it. And overall, in the mid game, it was definitely like a map control issue that was going on. Deep Blues was getting a lot of good trades and picks that was slowing Deadbeat down, but with the amount of map control that Deadbeats had, it was just a matter of time till they got a push like that. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Oop. Alright, so Pangit wanted me to tell you guys, he didn't mean to pick Grim here. He meant to pick Slosher, and he thought it was a different map and picked Grim. But I don't really think that was like the biggest impact on on this, because they kind of lost for different reasons. Alright, so right here, Deadbeat gets a lot of map control on the left, and it works well. And as soon as they back up, Pangit kind of goes for like an aggressive play. It's bothering me that I can't just hit space. Pangit goes for an aggressive play by putting himself in this spot here. And because they had already painted that, they knew like instantly that he was going to be like that's what was going on because they saw the paint. So Pangit just gets picked off. And Tim was right there ready to help him, but he wasn't quite in position yet. And with the, with the way that Pangit's weapon works, this would have been the same with Slosher or Blaster. I think that he probably should have had Tim be the one that pushes up like that. And then Tim could have baited for Pangit on either this position on the plat or even just where Tim was. And he could punish anybody that's on DB's or Deep Blues plat that wants to like clean up Tim. So I think they had the right idea. Deadbeat did. They made a good play, but they just executed it a little backwards, and it wasn't like perfectly coordinated, and that's why it didn't work out for them. And then they just, you know, the Cherry wins the 1v1 on the right, and they just push back power with a bunch of map control. And they do, Deadbeat was, I mean, Deep Blues was really quick right here with getting map control on the court here. Or on the hill here. So, yes, Taylor did get a pick with that Zuka that he just did, but he should have been aware of Dryas having his bubble here, or Dreas. I know him as Dreas, so I'm probably going to say that more often. Dreas either didn't say it, or Taylor just kind of like blew his Zuka early, but if they had done the bubble and the Zuka together, it would have completely shut out Deadbeat, and they probably would have gotten a much bigger lead here. So, like, Dreas made the right play and saved his bubble for the takeback, and he, like, counter-bubbled. It's a little unfortunate that Taylor didn't get it, but he also should have been ready for it. He wasn't quite in range to have it, so they end up letting Taylor die, and then they kind of lose control off of it. But they do get saved a little bit because Marsh and Burning do a really good job of delaying Deadbeat's push out. So they kind of like kept the zone a little longer, or kept the zone from DB or Deadbeats a little longer than they should have had it. The only issue is they did overcommit a little bit. Let me go back in a few seconds and kind of watch that again. 158.05. Let's do that. So here's the bubble. It's just a little bit out of position. I think he knew it was coming. He just didn't get as close as he needed to get it instantly. But you can see right there that Burning and Marsh are still alive in the zone, and they're getting it on and off and slowing Deadbeat down. They just kind of overcommit. Like, Taylor probably should have been telling them, all right, I'm almost back up a little bit, and then we'll push back out. But they end up getting picked off. And now Taylor's doing a good job of the same thing. He's staying alive, kind of waiting for a little help before pushing out again. Also, so the reason they get control here is purely off of stealth jump. They had that little bit of paint on the left, but they had to back up, obviously, which was good. They made the right play, but also Burning got a stealth jump off and ended up on that left court, and Deadbeat wasn't ready for it. And he picks off 2 people, and that just gives them the zone back for free. So it's almost entirely off a stealth jump that they won that right there, or got the zone back. Otherwise, it would have been a little more neutral, and this mid-game would have been a little different. So that wasn't necessarily a bad idea what Taylor did there. I think it was only okay because he was running so much quick respawn. It would have been a totally great play if he had stealth jump too. But that does give Deadbeat a little bit of an opening to kind of get out. They don't end up really getting much out of it, but it was a little risky. So Deadbeat is breaking out, but Deep Blues is kind of focusing paint on the zone, and they also never really secured their plat. So let me back up just a few seconds here. What are we at? 159.29. So Deadbeat pushes out into left court a little too quick. They didn't get like really full control of their plat, and they didn't have anybody in position to stop Deep Blues from getting on the plat. So they end up getting just sandwiched in left court. The power just like has nothing he can do there. And Taylor cleans up a couple of kills, and with that full wipe, the game is just over. So for this next game, I actually kind of want to see it from Deadbeat's point of view. So we are going to move on over to that. This is Power's point of view. Deadbeat has a really coordinated opening here. I think they definitely thought about it a little more than Deep Blues did. Power's in position to help mid or right. Tim ends up getting the kills on his own, but he's in position to help him if he did need it. And then so Tim gets the kills. And then Power's ready to just help mid almost instantly. Mid and left. And gets on the tower because he knows that there's nobody right to stop them now. The Charger Day gets a pretty good kill, but he gets cleaned up immediately afterward. And it slows them down, but it doesn't stop the push from happening. And then they just get slayed from there because they're not, like, Deep Blues, like, they didn't wait for anything after that. They got that initial, like, they were on the back foot almost immediately, and they needed to play like that, and then they weren't playing like that. They were trying to, you know, just like, oh, let's keep the pressure up, as if they were in, like, a head position. But Deadbeat just had the full initiative, and they end up getting a pretty good push here. So one thing Deadbeat does that most other teams don't really do as well is they generally have two people near the tower, and at least one of those guys is a splash wall user. And the splash wall user just throws it on tower, and the other guy just drops on and off over and over again while they push the tower forward. Generally, it's Power that stays on the tower, and sometimes he's the one with the wall, and sometimes he's not. But usually they have a splash wall user, and usually there's two people on it or near it at all times. So Deep Blues is really struggling for some momentum here. They get the push kind of slowed down, but they never really fully clear anybody out before pushing out. But Dreas right here makes a huge play by killing Tim. Power is doing all the right things, like searching for him. And he also makes the right decision here when he does leave that teammate. Because he doesn't really have a good angle on this guy down here. And he saw that Tim was going down to help him. So his immediate reaction was, alright, well, I can't help that much here, so I'm going to go help in mid and kind of hopefully keep these teammates safer. But Dreas still kind of gets the double out of it, which is it's not something you can predict. Like, it should have been a 2v1. Tim couldn't live quite long enough in order to clean him up. And it ends up making Deadbeat or Deep Blues get a little bit of a push here. But they don't get a push, but they get some map control. And but Deadbeat's takeback is a lot cleaner than Deep Blues. They did a really good job. I'm actually going to back up and kind of walk that through from where that started. So Power's going here to help Tim, but he doesn't really have a good angle on that cherry because of the splash wall and, you know, where the cherry is sitting. So he leaves his H3 to kind of do it on his own as soon as he sees that he has a teammate coming to help him. But he dies like as soon as he turns around, so it's like, yeah, whatever. I couldn't have predicted that. But now he's looking at mid, so that they can't move the tower. And then here's where the good takeback comes. They know, like, Deadbeat is really good at knowing what's important at any given time. So the first thing they think of, all right, we got to make sure that nobody's in our snipe. We can't take back our spinner without our snipe being clear. So they clear out snipe. And then immediately afterward, they're making sure that nothing gets into their spinner. So they have their spinner clear. Great. And now they're focusing on kind of fishing for picks, but also just trying to get map control. So they pushed from the right side of the map to the left side of the map, even though they knew that Deep Blues was coming from the left, because that forces Deep Blues into a single spot and allows them to get full map control before choking them out. So Power goes left to kind of like hopefully get picks, but it doesn't really matter if he gets picks or not. He's just kind of like an eyeball. And then everybody else is pushing from the right to the left. And they end up clearing everybody out and getting a push off of it again. Or at least getting a push started. So again, it's the same push again. They have 2 to 3 people in the spinner. Power's alone, but that's only because that the rest of the team is so far in at this point that all they need is just the tower to catch up. I'm pretty sure Tim is staying in this position to help Power in case of anybody going through mid. And Power is able to throw splash balls on tower to keep himself safe. So he's really not at risk at all. And that was a really sick kill from Power as well. So he sees a bunch of ink behind him, and he knows there's a guy there. But he also knows that there was a teammate there, which is the H3 here. So he doesn't jump out immediately, which is really smart, because this is going to let them like keep pressure up. Or like that would potentially let them keep the pressure up. They do eventually getting pushed back here because of that kill. And it's only then when Power actually goes like relocates. Which I thought was really smart, because most chargers in that scenario would have just jumped away and called it a day and said that was a good decision. Power stayed in knowing that he could, and then when he knew he couldn't anymore, he, instead of running away again, like running back to base, he puts himself in a better position in order to stop any sort of push or flank. And he's focusing on like the places that he's angling, like aiming and helping is wherever his teammates are at that point. Pangit does end up dying, but his focus was in the right spot. I have no idea how this guy died that's pushing Power back, but it was really lucky that he stayed alive there. The Cherry somehow got like a kill on him. So again, their pushback out strat is really smart. They focused on like making sure that nobody was in their snipe, because they knew nobody was in their snipe because of the echo, and then they just got their spinner. And now that they have their spinner, they just need to fish for picks and then push out. So now they know they got 2 down. They know they can get map control now. It doesn't matter where the other people are, they can get map control. They don't need to get the kills, they need to get the map control, because they're pushed into their base. And that's what they do. So again, like, they got the map control and a couple of them died, so they needed to, they knew they needed to fish for a couple more picks before they could like really push out for real. And they do that. And then they get 3 down here with like a decent amount of map control, which is really, really bad for Deep Blues. And now Deep Blues just has nothing on the map. I think the H3 got surprised there, but I think he just couldn't, like, he didn't understand the call out from Power, because Power definitely gave him enough notice ahead of time to react to that, and he just didn't react. I at least I assume Power called that out. If Power didn't call it out, then that's on him. So again, they're back into their spinner, but they're not letting Deep Blues get control of it, and they're just waiting for a couple picks to push back, and they got those picks right there. Nice help from a teammate, keeps Power alive. It's another time where they've gotten surprised from the left, and they weren't quite ready for it. If that hadn't happened, they definitely would have had full control, and I don't think Deep Blues would have had a chance. They didn't have a chance anyway because they get cleaned up, but like, it's like every time, like, Deadbeat makes a smart push out, and then just one person surprises Deadbeat, and then a couple of them die, but the rest of them play perfectly, or not perfectly, they play safe and then wait for another couple picks and they push out again. The only thing was, Deep Blues was doing a really good job of having one person surprise them, and Deadbeat wasn't really reacting to that correctly. But the other side of that coin was as soon as those kills were happening, Deadbeat would clean them up. So Deep Blues never really got anything off of those surprise plays, even though like most teams would have. Or at least against most teams it would have been more effective. And then they just run out of time at that point. Alright, so let's move on to Anchovy. Okay, so I also like Deadbeat start here. The Cherry spends a little extra time painting to get closer to Bubble before pushing out on Fan. And then they send 2 right in order to pressure the other Fan. And it feels like a slow start to Deep Blues. So they end up getting baited out. And then they get punished right there. So no matter what start Deadbeat or Deep Blues would have done there, Deadbeat could have adapted with that setup. It was all about execution at that point. So the Cherry has all the tools it needs. As soon as it gets there, it has all the tools it needs to hold Fan. So Power's only job at the start, like before the Cherry gets onto Fan, is to make sure he doesn't let anybody get there. And then nobody does. And then the Cherry's there, and now he knows that he can kind of position however he wants in order to assist the push from that on. So the main reason that this push doesn't work for Deadbeat is they kind of don't push in together. They never killed the guy with the bubble. So they needed to know that the bubble was still around, or potentially still around. And you can just assume that he was on snipe, because that's probably where the bubble is going to go. And they don't push in together into the base in order to kind of split the bubbler's focus, and they end up getting pushed out with it. It doesn't let Deep Blues get out, but it does make sure that Deadbeat doesn't get a push. But Pangit right there was still alive. Like, he got off a stealth jump and is still alive on a snipe and ends up making a really, really, really huge play here. And they get 3 down off of it. It just seems like they were a little slow to get this Rainmaker moving and get this push out. And they end up not getting very many points off of it again. But they still got mid control, so it's kind of just a matter of time, or at least from their perspective, it's just a matter of time until they can make something happen, as long as they don't lose the map control. But they end up like overcommitting, and they do get pushed back. And then Deep Blues kind of gets a push, but it's kind of the opposite, or it's kind of like the opposite of what Deadbeat had. Deadbeat, they took too long to get their push going, and then DB's counter push takes too long, or is the opposite. They rushed in with bubble and don't have the Rainmaker ready to follow up on that, so they don't get as many points as they really should have. And then Power gets forced into office here. He gets a nice pick, but his teammates on the right end up dying here. And as soon as that happens, he's out of position, because the Rainmaker is on that side of the map, and it can move in. And he realizes this as soon as the H3 dies there, and he starts moving. But at that point, it was like already DB's gonna get like at least something. And they get a good push. But they overcommit a little too much there. They probably could have after they got it pushed into where it was. They really kind of just needed to slow push it a little bit. Let jumps come in, kind of like get the Rainmaker popped so that it's a threat, and then kind of just push Deadbeat into their base. But they don't do that. Like they kind of like try and push into spawn. and they end up getting cleaned up and fully wiped. And then Deadbeat kind of gets a counter push. But the counter push isn't really very coordinated. I kind of want to watch that again, actually, so I can talk through that a little better. Oops. That's too far. Ah, it's so hard to hit this. Alright, we'll just watch it from this point. So, that's power out of position. Deep Blues gets their lead, and they clean up power. That was 3 down for Deadbeat. This should easily be a stronger push for Deep Blues. They don't grab the Rainmaker, and they overcommit, so Deadbeat wipes them. So, the counter push from Deadbeat, right here, is another kind of uncoordinated push. They send 2 to the left here, with power looking over their shoulder on the left, but they don't have somebody coming at it from another angle. So all Deep Blues has to do is focus on one position and stop them. You can't do that kind of push without some sort of special, or, you know, like many on the other team being down. They had already respawned at that point, so it was guaranteed that they were going to be looking towards the Rainmaker. So what they really needed to do was have either power or somebody else grab it. It probably should have been power grabbing that Rainmaker there. And then somebody needed to go over fan and let somebody push with power with the Rainmaker, and then fan happen. But the coordination just isn't there, and they get stopped. They do have solid map control there, so they can try for another push. But they, like, nobody's in there with Pangit, and they do get pushed out. So Taylor does a pretty good job of zoning back power. You know, power is one of the hardest people to zone in the game, because as soon as you mess up even a little bit, he will kill you. And Taylor knows that. So as soon as he realizes that the Rainmaker's still in his base and his team isn't able to, like, clear out the rest of the team on their own, he knows that he has to leave power. As soon as he doesn't get the kill, so he knows that he can't sandwich them because power's still there. He knows power's going to go for the kill. So what he does here, after he pushes power in a little bit harder, is he jumps back, because there's no safe way for him to go towards the Rainmaker. And if he can't kill power, basically he either had to kill power and then move back towards the Rainmaker, which would have been the best case scenario, or if he zones power a little bit, and if he doesn't get it, he needs to jump back to the base. And he played it perfectly. Those were the two best options for him there. And because of that, he gets back into the Rainmaker a little faster than power does. And they end up pushing Deadbeat back off. The Rainmaker just got a little too antsy there trying to get out. They did mostly the right things, but the Rainmaker just needed to kind of like hang back just a little bit so that power couldn't just like stay there. But overall, it was a good push out. So right here, Deadbeat's kind of all over the place, and they're getting really staggered spawns. And they're not really focusing on one specific thing as they're pushing out, and it's kind of just letting Deep Blues kind of like push them in. And Deep Blues gets, I don't think they get many more points here. They maybe get like 10 more points. And again, it's the same thing with them. They don't get as many points as they should have here, because they are bubbling in way ahead of the Rainmaker. The Rainmaker needs to be ready to move as soon as they make that rush up the spawn ramp. And if it's not, they're not going to get much out of it. And they end up not getting much out of it. They get like 5 or 10 points or something like that. So that's not really worth it. And then that was just a desperate, hey, it's Rainmaker, let me get some more points kind of thing. And at this point, honestly, you can kind of tell that Deadbeat was a little antsy. Because they don't really push together on anything. Like, Pangit's going left here. Tim went middle, or no, the H3 went middle, Tim's going towards Rainmaker, and Power's just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to look at right now because everybody's everywhere. They get a couple of good picks, and it kind of looks like it might be good. But again, they do the same thing, where they send two, like the Rainmaker and another shooter left, and have Power on the fan looking over them, and then nothing's on the right to push in. I think it ends up going there, but it takes a little longer than it needed to. And Deadbeat's kind of just in position to stop it. It was really scary, and it could have been a lead there. It's really good on Deep Blues to not, like, choke. Because that very easily could have been a last-second comeback right there. But they don't choke, and they do get that win. So that's two games to Deep Blues, which is, as of then, nobody had beaten Deadbeat in that tournament. So, you know, really good on them. But then this next game happens. So Power falls, and I'm sure every charger out there has done this at least once, but it puts them on the back foot at the start. He does what he can, and he kind of like goes for a pick that, you know, there's no realistic way that he would expect to get it. So then he's like, all right, well, I just got to reposition now. But at that point, they were kind of already on the back foot because one of them had been picked off, and they're getting pushed into close now, and he falls again. But yeah, him in this position is not helping anything. He really needs to get up top sooner. But he makes up for what he did there by getting this insane double, which basically turned this game from being Deep Blues like at a huge advantage to Deadbeat and like, control at the beginning. That was such an important double for them, like for Deadbeat. If that had not happened, this would have been a totally different game. So, Deadbeat's setup there was kind of split up, and it wasn't really, like, they didn't really move their focus well. And then Power kind of just, Power goes to closed, kind of like he realizes that they're going to lose the zone. So he's like, all right, well, I need to, like, the best thing I can do here is use my Kraken in their closed and hope I can get jumps to me. So he does that. He gets a cool kill, but he doesn't get everybody in closed, and then he just gets kited and killed. And then right here, oops, that was a little too far. So he gets kited and killed here. So on the take back, Deadbeat, I don't know how this happens, but the H3 basically 1v2s or 1v3s enclosed, and that's really all it took to get this pushback out. But yeah, the Cherry somehow gets a double. Tim wins his 1v1, and they just get the zone back for free. Like, I don't know what happened from the Cherry's point of view, but he must have made something huge. And basically the story of this game is those two plays are what won it for Deadbeat in a lot of ways. So the setup starts to make a little more sense here. They have Pangit, who's a slosher, kind of just sharking in the courtyard, trying to create pressure, with Power over him going for picks as Pangit's baiting. And then what they have two people kind of enclosed, I think. So the theory behind that is one person's ready to flank. But it doesn't really work out really well because Deep Blues ends up putting a lot of pressure in the middle. Or like they end up putting a lot of pressure in the middle, and they do clean up Pangit, and then they just adapt really, and then Deadbeat adapts really slow. And that gives Deep Blues the zone. They never Deep Blues never kills the cherry, or at least not till right there. They didn't kill the cherry, so they got some jumps in, and it kind of slowed everything down for them. And this is also kind of cool. Like Tim tells Power, "Hey, jump to me. You can get a pick, and they're closed." And he does that, and he gets a pick. This kill is such a bummer for Taylor. But again, they don't have anybody in zone because Deep Blues had so many people in their court and clean them out. But the Kraken kind of slows everything down again too. Power's trying really hard to not give up ground here, but he's a charger on arrow one them all and not in position to like do anything. So Deadbeat gets a lead. Because even though he got that kill there with the Kraken, it didn't paint the zone enough to neutralize it, so that whole time Deadbeat, even though they weren't actually in position, they were getting points. And Deadbeat didn't really have any paint. Like, any painters alive to deal with it. So that takeback was really good. I kind of want to... Let me do that again. So, Deep Blues gets the lead, but the H3 somehow gets control of closed again. And Pang gets his Ink Strike here forces Deep Blues to push forward because they can't, obviously they can't back up because there's a freaking Ink Strike there, and top mid's too small for them to kind of, you know, it's too small for them to kind of move to the side, so they have to push forward, and they don't get the kills that they need to. Like, they had to just hope they could get kills as they jumped forward right here, and they don't do it, and they die. And that gives Deadbeat control again. And this time it's another full setup from Deadbeat, and they are much better about their adaptation this time. They send 3 through the middle, or they have 3 kind of in the middle here watching the center because they realized that that's how they were losing it. And because of that, they're able to come out. See, right there, like, you're seeing them kind of move in and out, move in and out. The cherry's moving back and forth, ready to help. Hangit's kind of going in as much as he can, and Power's watching every angle that he can as well. The setup is much cleaner. But yeah, that game, if not for those 2 double kills that happened, or if DB was a little bit better at keeping the enemy closed, this game would have been totally different. There's I think it was 2 times in a row that the cherry solo got closed again. Like, normally the way you need to get closed back is to push, like, get control from open into mid, and then push from the backs, like the right side of closed and the left side of closed at the same time, or like whale and ink strike it or something. But they didn't do any of that. They just had the cherry go in and he gets like double kills, and then it gives them control back. But they wouldn't have had many of those opportunities if not for those huge doubles, like the huge double at the start that Power got. So this game very easily could have gone towards Deep Blues. Anyway, that's the set. That was a 4-2 for a Deadbeat. Deep Blues was really, like, they had some really bad games in that set, but they also had some really cool games. And with a little more practice, I'm sure that, like, they can, like, just a little more coordination basically is what they need, and focusing on the right things at the right time. Like the Black Belly game, that 90% of the problem there was they just didn't look at it, or didn't have proper ink control. Anyway, that's a full set. I'm done talking. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you like this video, what I can do better, if you want to see more, what kind of sets you want me to VOD review. I don't really know. Like, I know of one other set in follow the Squids that I want to do, which is the finals, obviously. And but other than that, I don't really have like many plans for this. So let me know what you think you want to watch, and I'll see if I can do it. All right, thanks for watching.